This is the early morning of the 15th of November, a little after 4 a.m. Clip put up by the Royal Spotlight. J.D. Vance's wife leaks Erika Kirk's plan to become First Lady. Didn't I say that? Like, I don't know, 8 or 9 times already? Put up by Celebrity Gossip. Plays for 21 minutes. Let's have a listen.
Anything that I say, no matter how crazy, Usha has to smile and laugh and celebrate it. My wife did not grow up Christian. I think it's fair to say that she grew up in a Hindu family, but not in a particularly religious family, because I believe in the Christian gospel, and I hope eventually my wife comes to see it the same way. But if she doesn't, then God says everybody has free will, and so that...
Hey, JD, does the Christian gospel include homosexuality? Like your tryst with Peter Thiel?
That doesn't cause a problem for me.
But I do see some similarities of my husband in JD and Vice President JD. Yes, I do.
A seemingly innocuous statement, but it opened a whole new chapter of debate. And this is where things started to turn. According to several people close to her, Usha, J.D. Vance's wife, has shared with friends that she once heard someone predict J.D. will get divorced, marry Erika Kirk, and then lead the country in 28. It sounds like something out of a political movie, but it began to spread after Usha seemed to find signs she couldn't ignore. That the controversial hug wasn't just a hug. It was more like a soft introduction, a strategy calculated to move Erika closer to the role that social media was talking about, the next First Lady. And when someone asked Erika,
what do you hope to achieve for Charlie and for the country?
Oh my goodness. All of his wildest dreams for this organization.
the answer, with its emotional tone, made people feel even more. It wasn't all just a coincidence. Big dreams, unfulfilled ambitions, all of this suddenly became the backdrop for a story that the online community has yet to stop debating. So, what does all this mean for Usha Vance? According to those close to her, Usha began to fear that JD was drifting away from her, and perhaps preparing to start a new life with Erika. But then the story got more serious. Some insiders say Usha sensed something was off, to the point where she feared she might be drawn into an unsafe situation. This speculation stems from a series of questions surrounding Charlie's departure that have yet to be fully explained. Was this a long-planned plan to remove the characters who stood in her way, to force Usha to back down, and then to prepare for a fusion between JD and Erika before 28? Of course, all of this is just gossip, but the feeling of unease is spreading more than ever.
I confronted Usha Vance. I held her hand and I told her, honestly, I do not know how I'm going to get through this.
That shows that Usha is no longer standing outside the story. She knows better than anyone that what is happening is no longer the imagination of the online community. She has pieced together the pieces herself, just like how many people are trying to understand what is happening between JD and Erika. People close to Usha shared that she saw things that made her think a lot, from messages, photos, to unusual timelines. And what made her shiver even more was the suspicion that Erika had started paving the way for a new future, right from the time of Charlie's funeral. But the moment that made it all explode was the controversial hug at the Turning Point event in Oxford. A moment that only lasted a few seconds, but was enough to make people ask all the questions about the relationship, about motives, and about the things that happened behind the scenes that the public never saw. Erika couldn't help but smile as she took the stage. Right at the moment, she compared JD Vance to her late husband. It was a gentle statement, but it made many people jump.
I'll ever replace my husband. No. But I do see some similarities of my husband in JD and Vice President JD Vance. I do. And that's why I'm so blessed to be able to introduce him tonight, because he understands the fight that we're up against.
The statement was delivered with a glint in her eye, as if she had accidentally revealed an emotion she couldn't control. And then, just a few seconds later, Erika continued. That's why I feel so honored to introduce him tonight, because he understands what we're trying to protect. The moment JD took the stage, that hug happened. The moment that became the center of all the debate. If you just watched it without knowing anything about these two people, you might think it was just a widow receiving support from a close friend. But given the context of what was happening, things were no longer that simple. The online community asked, why did a widow who had just experienced a loss hug a married man in such an intimate way? Why was there such an incomprehensible excitement in her voice? And most importantly, why did every word she said unintentionally draw attention to JD? Not as a colleague, but as a replacement. The detail that confused people even more was the body part. Tight leather pants, JD's hand on her hip, Erika's hand reaching up to touch his back and hair. That was not a typical action at a formal event, and even less so for a woman in the midst of mourning her husband. How long will it be before people stop telling themselves that everyone grieves differently? Because according to many people who have followed the event since September 10th, Erika's behavior is very difficult to match the way a person in that situation would know. What?
That just popped up. The Black Widow, huh? I called her the Black Widow.
Act.
Nothing is changing, but I want to preface, we're not awkward, we're not like weird, we're not going to be tweeting as if it's him. That's tone deaf and really disturbing, and anyone who does that's like morbidly
Hey, we're going to be doing about 5 more episodes a week now, so just tell the team and make sure that happens.
3 hours of this, 2 more hours of...
It's like, lady, wasn't your husband just publicly executed only a couple of weeks ago? I've never had this much joy on my best day.
But here's the bigger picture that people are talking about. Those close to the Trump family have publicly said that JD Vance is positioned for the future. Laura Trump has made it clear that after Donald Trump's term, Vance will be the next 8 years. What does that mean? In the eyes of many political watchers, JD Vance is strategically positioned to become the new face of the conservative movement. And in such a scenario, anyone who appears next to JD, especially a young, religiously active, self-made widow who is receiving a huge amount of attention, is bound to be the focus of speculation.
Imagine, Stuart, we kept what we've seen happen over the past 10 years going for the next 8 years, which is what a lot of people believe is going to happen, that the Democrats are in such a bad spot with no leader, no message, and nothing that the American people are interested in, that once Donald Trump ends his term, and we love the Trump 2028 hats, don't kid yourself, I know everybody, especially a lot of Democrats love those, then it will be JD Vance for the next 8 years, and that is terrifying to the Democrat Party.
Yeah. Since September 10th, Erika has barely been off camera for more than a day. She's been on podcasts, at events, speaking, live streaming, doing interviews, and creating content nonstop. All of this leaves the biggest question unanswered. Is this just an attempt to get over her grief? Or is it a carefully crafted strategy for a whole new journey? Erika is constantly in the public eye. From talk shows, podcasts, media interviews, to events big and small, she appears almost every day. And in every recent appearance, Erika repeats a message that social media cannot ignore. JD Vance is the only one who can compare to Charlie. A small statement, but its impact is not small. Many people believe that there is nothing accidental here, because when someone repeats something many times in the media, it is no longer a compliment, it becomes a sign. And it is from those signs that the online community begins to ask a bold question. Is Erika positioning herself for a bigger role, a role of national importance? Many comments on X, Twitter, have spread at a dizzying speed. One person wrote, "I'll just say it, JD Vance will divorce his wife, then marry Erika, the one in the public eye, and become a presidential candidate in 28. Another added, JD could cite religious differences as an excuse to end his current marriage, then move on with Erika, who has an image that fits with the conservative Christian community. All of that is speculation, but it reflects how the public is viewing the situation. The combination of politics, personal image, and controversial moments makes the story hard to ignore. But now, let's talk about Usha, who many believe is in a very difficult position. In recent photos, many people have commented that Usha looks tired, lack of vitality, or even hurt. These comments were not meant to attack her, but rather to show genuine concern for a woman who has been very candid about her marriage. Because before Erika came along, JD and Usha always said that their religious differences had never created a distance between them. Usha once talked about her warm childhood in an immigrant family from India. She grew up surrounded by love, a strict education, and traditional values passed down from her parents. When they met JD, they came together with curiosity and mutual respect. Differences were not a barrier. They were catalysts that helped them understand each other better. JD was interested in learning about his wife's culture. He learned to cook Indian food, respected her vegetarian diet, and always said that those differences made their life more interesting.
My background is very different from JD's. I grew up in San Diego, in a middle-class community. With two loving parents, both immigrants from India. When JD met me, he approached our differences with curiosity and enthusiasm. He wanted to know everything about me, where I came from, what my life had been like. Although he's a meat and potatoes kind of guy, he adapted to my vegetarian diet and learned to cook food from my mother, Indian food.
But fast forward to the present, JD is standing in front of a crowd again, talking about his Christian faith and his hope that his wife will eventually feel the same way.
My wife did not grow up Christian. I think it's fair to say that she grew up in a Hindu family, but not a particularly religious family in either direction. Now, most Sundays, Usha will come with me to church. As I've told her, and I've said publicly, and I'll say now in front of 10,000 of my closest friends, do I hope eventually that she is somehow moved by the same thing that I was moved in by church? Yeah, I honestly do wish that, because I believe in the Christian gospel, and I hope eventually my wife comes to see it the same way. But if she doesn't, then God says everybody has free will, and so that doesn't cause a problem for me. That's something you work out with your friends, with your family, with the person that you love.
This story has gone beyond the personal. It is becoming a political, image, and strategic game, where every move can mean more than what is seen on the surface. JD Vance has repeatedly said that every weekend, Usha goes to church with him. He said this very naturally in front of tens of thousands of fans. My wife was not raised in a Christian environment, but I always hope that one day she will feel the same way I feel. In JD's words, he always emphasized that he respects Usha's choice, that faith is something each person decides for themselves. But while the sentence sounds light, many people sensed another hidden meaning behind it, especially in the context of recent controversies. Because as soon as JD said that Usha's family is not very religious, social media immediately reacted. Not against JD, but against the obvious contradiction between what he said and what Usha shared in public.
One is that I did grow up in a religious household. My parents are Hindu, and that was one of the things that made them such good parents, that make them really very good people. And so I think I've seen the power of that in my own life.
In Usha's narrative, religion is not something obscure or foreign. It's an important part of who she is. So why does JD describe Usha's family differently? This is where the online community began to ask questions. What's even more interesting is that Usha and JD had an interfaith wedding where a Hindu priest performed a traditional blessing ceremony. Usha has emphasized that this ceremony is very important to her and her family, a way of showing respect for her cultural roots. And that's where the speculations began. Is JD changing the story to suit his political base? Or is he trying to create a picture of religious incompatibility between the couple, to soften the rumors that his marriage is in trouble?
Let's not forget when JD was young, he thought he was a girl. Huh? You guys major fucked up.
Of course, this is just media and social media analysis, not confirmed facts. But one thing is clear. The change in the way JD talks about Usha compared to before has left many people feeling that something is not right. Some online even think that JD is preparing an excuse to explain if his marriage is in turmoil, especially since Erika Kirk's name has come up in countless recent controversies. They ask, is mentioning religious differences JD's way of setting the stage for bigger decisions in the future? No one knows what the truth is. No one is saying JD is doing anything wrong. But clearly, the difference between the story then and the story now is drawing public attention. And in the age of social media, just one off-key statement is enough to spark 1,000 theories. In the eyes of many who have followed the story, the whole situation between JD Vance, Usha, and Erika Kirk is starting to look more strategic than emotional. Some online commentary suggests that JD may be looking to separate from Usha to better align with the constituency he wants to attract, especially the strong MAGA supporters. This is purely speculation, but it's coming up more and more when juxtaposed with recent statements from both JD and Erika.
JD Vance has zero chance in being elected in 2008. He might play president for a short period of time once Trump's out of office, either by passing away or being incarcerated. But he's not going to make it in 2008. Gavin Newsom will be elected. Trump's totally destroyed the Republican Party, including MAGA.
The timing can't be overlooked. Just a month after her husband's passing, Erika stood on stage and said, "I see some similarities between my husband and JD." A statement that may be emotional for others, but for the online community, it's the opening signal of something bigger. And then, shortly after, JD publicly expressed concern about his wife's lack of faith, which had never been an issue in their marriage. The timing really made people say the familiar phrase, coincidence or design. And then came the much-discussed Pauline privilege, also known as the Pauline privilege. This is a long-standing rule in Catholic tradition. It allows a baptized person to end a non-sacramental marriage, that is, a marriage between two people in which one is not a member of the church, in order to remarry another member of the church. In the eyes of many, this means that if JD, a Catholic, wanted to enter into a purely religious marriage, this rule could theoretically allow him to end his current marriage and marry someone who shares his faith. And in the heated media story, the name that has been mentioned the most is Erika Kirk, whose image is closely associated with the Christian community. The important thing is, no one said this was bound to happen. No one said JD wanted it. But the public kept asking questions because strange overlapping details kept appearing. On one side is Usha, who has shared very sincerely about her Hindu family and the values she was raised with. On the other side is Erika, who has always appeared as a devout believer, is regularly invited to missionary events, and has received strong support from the conservative community after her husband's incident. On the internet, the theory is quietly spreading. If JD is preparing to run for president in the near future, having an ideal image partner could bring an advantage. And that's led to more attention being paid to JD and Erika's interactions, from the controversial hugs, to the cryptic statements, to the behind-the-scenes moments. No one knows what's really going on under the surface. But with all the unusual details that have emerged since Charlie Kirk's death, many feel they can no longer write anything off as random. Perhaps this is just the beginning of a much more complicated story, and we're about to enter the wildest chapter yet, where politics, emotions, and ambitions collide in unpredictable ways. One of the most controversial points today is that many people are juxtaposing two stories: the sudden departure of Charlie Kirk and the increasingly dense appearance of the name JD Vance, Erika Kirk, in social media speculations. Obviously, no one has confirmed that these two events are directly related. But what netizens cannot ignore is the series of coincidences that appear continuously. First is the timing. As soon as Charlie is no longer there, Erika immediately becomes the center of attention, is invited to speak, appears on many stages, and begins to say unintentional words, creating a crossroads between her and JD. Next is how the story of the lone wolf, as described by many newspapers, contains too many gaps that make netizens constantly ask questions. If you've been following the whole thing from the beginning, you'll notice there are corrections, there are inconsistent reports, there are controversial videos, and there are details that make the story more ambiguous than clear. And when information is unclear, theories flourish. Some believe this is just an isolated tragedy, but others, especially on TikTok, X, and Reddit, see it as an open door for Erika to change her life, and for JD to rearrange his future. What's really heating up is how some netizens have interpreted Erika's expressions and actions. They've found her grief to be very controlled, a bit theatrical at times. Of course, no one has the right to judge how someone deals with loss, but the internet is always looking at everything with a magnifying glass. And then, when JD started saying things like, "My wife wasn't raised in a religious environment. I hope one day she'll see the same thing as me," the online community immediately connected the two stories. Not because they believed there was a conspiracy, but because the details came together so perfectly to fuel suspicion. And what really worried the public was Usha Vance. After JD's controversial statement, a series of comments began to appear. Why did JD talk about his wife like that in public? Why is he talking about conversion right now? Is Usha okay? Some people, even jokingly, wrote things that sounded very extreme. Usha Vance will disappear from the headlines in 2 to 4 weeks. These are obviously satirical lines, but they reflect a real concern for many. Usha is being unfairly placed in both the media and her personal life. The important thing is, there is no evidence that Usha is in danger. There is no evidence that JD or Erika did anything wrong. But the community's sense of unease stems from how quickly things happened, so coincidentally and so out of sync. It was Usha's silence, combined with Erika's constant appearances and JD's inflammatory statements, that created the perfect recipe for widespread speculation. With every unanswered question about Charlie's passing, the online community feels like they're looking at a bigger story, one whose pieces they don't yet see. And now we enter the wild part, where emotions, politics, and doubts collide more strongly than ever. When everything is put together, we see not just a series of disjointed events, but a story in motion, where every little detail contributes to the sense that there is something more than meets the eye. Charlie's departure, Erika's rise, JD's controversial statements, and Usha's thoughtful silence, all of it blends into a soundtrack that the public can't stop listening to.
Usha would know more than anyone else based on JD's sexual encounters with her. And I suspect that they've changed dramatically since his mind is probably on Erika. Let's hope this downloads. If it does, pass it along to your like-minded friends. If it doesn't, I'll just give you the link.